Alright, what we're going to do is take a look at why we include a plus or minus when taking square roots. This could be 4th roots, 6th roots, any sort of even root, but since with algebra and algebra 2 we deal a lot with square roots, I'm going to work with just those. Alright, so suppose I asked you to solve the absolute value of x equals 5. You could see that 5 definitely works. The absolute value of 5 is 5, and so does negative 5. But if we wanted to solve that algebraically, what we would do is we would take x is equal to plus or minus 5, and that would give us our two solutions, x equals 5 and x equals negative 5. Right, and this holds true for all absolute value equations. Here we have the absolute value of 2x plus 1 equals 3. I'm going to take 2x plus 1 equals plus or minus 3. Notice the absolute value bars are now gone when I include the plus or minus. And from here we're going to set up two equations. 2x plus 1 equals 3 and 2x plus 1 equals negative 3, and you would just solve these, subtract 1, you get 2x equals 2 and x equals 1. Alright, and that does work if you plug it in and check it. And here you'd have 2x equals negative 4, so x equals negative 2. And that also checks. These next four problems here, we're just going to be simplifying. So if I asked you to simplify the square root of 4 squared, 4 squared is just 16, so it's the square root of 16, which is just 4. Alright, so basically, square roots and squares, they undo each other. Here we have the square root of negative 4 squared. Negative 4 squared is negative 4 times negative 4, which is positive 16. So once again, we just get 4. Alright, if we take the square root of 1.8 squared, it's just 1.8. Square root of negative 1.8 squared is, once again, just positive 1.8. What I want you to see from these four examples is that if I take the square root of something squared, it's equal to the absolute value of whatever that number or value, whatever it was, expression term that was being squared, whatever that is, it's just the absolute value of that. All right, and this, and looking back up here with the absolute value equations, this is where we're going to incorporate our plus or minus. Alright, so on this, here we have two problems we're going to solve, and we have x squared equals 81. To get rid of this square, we're going to take the square root of both sides. So I have the square root of x squared is equal to the square root of 81. We know from the previous slide at the very bottom, the square root of x squared is just the absolute value of x. The absolute value of x is equal to the square root of 81. Keep in mind, I haven't taken plus or minus yet. Now, in the next step, when I'm solving absolute value equations, when I get rid of the absolute value, that's when I include plus or minus. So I have x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 81, and now we'll get our two answers. X is equal to 9, and x is equal to negative 9. All right, and these both work. You check. In this next equation, we're going to divide both sides by 4. So we have x minus 1 squared is equal to 24 divided by 4 is 6. We're going to take the square root of both sides. The square root of x minus 1 squared is just the absolute value of x minus 1. And we still have the square root of 6 on the right. Now when I get rid of the absolute value, that's when I include plus or minus. So x minus 1 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 6. Add 1 to both sides, and you get x is equal to plus or minus root 6 plus 1. All right, and here are your two solutions. The square root of 6 plus 1 and negative square root of 6 plus 1.